Chris, 80 years, it's an amazing twinning, and I think, as was said at that flag hoisting ceremony, possibly one, if not the longest twinning in the country.
Yeah, I think we can make a good claim for that. Bath actually linked with Alkmaar when it was still occupied by the German army. That's the amazing thing.
How did that happen?
The campaigners won permission from Queen Wilhelmina of the Dutch, who was in exile here. They wrote and said, "We in Bath would like to adopt Alkmaar. May we have your permission?" And she said, "What a great idea. Yes, you have my permission." So a meeting was held of the Rotary Club, other community groups, chaired by the mayor, and it was agreed in March 1945, so the war wasn't over, Alkmaar was still occupied, that Bath would officially adopt the city of Alkmaar, which is about 25 miles north of Amsterdam, to help people orientate. And a collection then started, and the whole city got involved. It's really incredible. It's very moving to read the reports at the time. From school children to theatres, football clubs, rugby, everybody got involved. A huge amount of food and clothing and kitchen utensils was collected, and money, of course. In modern terms, over £300,000 was collected. Remember, this is Bath, still under rationing, having survived the Bath Blitz, and delivered to the people of Alkmaar once they were liberated in May 1945.
Why Alkmaar, of all places? How did that come about?
Well, it's a fascinating story. The real reason is that there was a young man, a young Jewish activist who'd been helping Jewish people get out of pre-war Germany. He lived in Alkmaar, and he realised when the Germans invaded, he would get arrested. So he literally, as the German paratroopers were landing, got a taxi, jumped on a trawler, sailed across the North Sea, dodging mines, the Luftwaffe, landed in Lowestoft, and he came to Bath because his sister had married an Englishman and was living in Bath. He came to Bath, he gave talks about Alkmaar, about the war, and he joined the air raid wardens. He became a well-known figure. His name was Ellie Prinz. And so when the war was ending, and North Holland and North Netherlands in particular were in a very dire state, there'd been a terrible famine, lots of people were starving. The people of Bath said, "We won't just collect for the Netherlands, we want to collect for Alkmaar, because it's where Ellie comes from, and we know about Alkmaar." And the idea was that by making it much more personal, by focusing on one location, it was more motivational. And that's absolutely what happened. It's an incredible story. It's one of the great stories of Bath in the last 100 years. It deserves to be better known.
There is at this time one picture doing the rounds on social media of a group of young children, Dutch children. Was that the first party to come to Bath after the war?
Yes, there was a surprise visit from the mayor of Alkmaar, who managed to get permission to fly over for the first ever Alkmaar week. We're holding an Alkmaar week now, but the first ever Alkmaar week was in July 1945 as a fundraising event. And so he was the first person to actually arrive. But part of the plan was always that some of the children, particularly the children who'd been very badly affected by the famine in the previous winter, should come over to England, should be helped to recover, and then should have a holiday being fostered by families here in Bath. And so in December, on December the 10th, 1945, 50 children arrived in Bath, incredibly excited, in better health than they had been, and were looked after for several weeks. They had a fantastic Christmas here. And there are some wonderful pictures of these young children, very excited, very pleased to be here. And they had a wonderful time, went back to Alkmaar. People of Alkmaar, one, they were very grateful for what Bath had done, but they'd also heard of the bombing of Bath, the terrible destruction and death. So the people of Alkmaar said, "Well, we'd like to invite 100 children from Bath to come and have a summer holiday in 1946 in Alkmaar." And so 100 children, and imagine, this is 1946, so the war had been going on since 1939. A lot of these children never had a proper summer holiday, certainly hadn't really known anything except war. 100 children from Bath assembled at Bath Pavilion, just on the other side of the river, and made their way to Alkmaar and had a splendid time in Alkmaar, being spoilt rotten at apparently, and having a wonderful time. And that was the beginning, again, being fostered by families in Alkmaar. That was the beginning of the whole idea of exchanges, people staying with families and so on.
Well, we're talking, I suppose, about the grandchildren of those original kids who may now have travelled across the English Channel. It's an active thing. It isn't, you know, you can write down, yes, we got a twinning, we've got an 80-year-old friendship, but in physical terms, how many children, how many people, in fact, have been exchanged between the two?
Yeah. Well, if you think over 80 years, there must be thousands of people. Thousands of people have gone back and forth between our two cities, and as we like to say, not as tourists, but as guests and friends. And certainly this year alone, over 200 people from Bath are going to Alkmaar. We've got a large choir going. We've had the rowing club go over. The Rotary Club have gone over. Bath Cycling Club are cycling over in August, believe it or not, all the way there. So it's absolutely a living and breathing connection. And as I said, we remember the story of how it started because it teaches us some very important lessons. But we also keep it going because, and this is allowed, it's fun. It is actually fun. And people have a most wonderful time. Someone wrote to me from one of the groups that had gone over this year. Never been to Alkmaar before. Was a little bit sceptical about what he would find. He wrote and said, gosh, I've done many things in my life, but this is the best thing I have ever done. He said, it's not just an excuse to go over and share a drink with some people with some funny accents. He said, this is actually making the world a better place.
Yeah.
And that's really special. So, you know, twinning can be seen to be a bit twee and a bit sort of old-fashioned, but once people go, and I know because they write to me as the chair, they have the most amazing time, and it really enriches their lives, and the same I hear from people in Alkmaar. So it's a wonderful link, and one that we want to encourage more people to get involved with and keep it going for another 80 years.